Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, Consciousness Tonight is live on day 3. How's everybody doing out there? I see Huzil Alred says they're too jet lagged. I got a nice little hip hop beat going in the background here. My name is Baba Brinkman. If anybody wants to throw a comment into the chat, we'll riff on it. Actually, I wouldn't mind having some rhyme time. Can I get you? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, all right. So check it out. Yo, I'm gonna keep it rocking. I see a name in the chat. It's Frankish Hoffman. See what I'm saying? So don't get the vapors. That's Eugene's suggested workshop paper poster. I mean, that's the thing that he was looking for. This is rap and it's beef and I cook it raw. I mean, come on, I'm on this set. This is Consciousness Tonight. I'm talking consciousness and every single theory. So who's in the rhyme? I see there's only like 25 online, and that's y'all. You're connected to me. Did I say it right? What did U-Z-I-E-L? I don't even know. I just thought that U-Z-I-L already fit the flow. Anyway, yo, this is straight up in the rap. Yes, can't you see that Jenny Simon is in the chat? I got a lyric and I burn it up. I see the universe, panspermia. Can't you even see? I got the lyric, and that's a concept that was put out by Francis Crick. Indeed, you could examine it. It was up in that mission to Mars. This is Baba Brinkman, and I'm straight up spitting the bars. Can't you even hear it? I be coming with the lyrics. People listen up and they're like, whoa, is it serious? Serious or not, I feel an echo. I wish I didn't notice and could just let go. But I think there might be a little speaker that's up in my room creating this little tweak verse. I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna adjust it. Freestyle at the same time I will bust it. Can't you even see? Realizing no regretting. While I kick this rap, I'm adjusting computer settings. Yeah, right. Put it down, y'all. That's it. I clicked it. I turned my sound off. Now the distortion's passed and straight up disappeared. I can't even see. Now it's kind of weird. Excuse me, I should have said Uzi like those machine guns, but I'm not lyrically choosy. Come on. This is rap I burn up. One of my inspirations is Annapurna. Can't you even see? This is how I spit joy. I gotta give a shout out to Daniel Mitroy. I'm trying to just pronounce all your names. Hopefully I don't do it in a way that accrues shame. Okay. Welcome to Consciousness Tonight. Hopefully I pronounce everybody's names right. But let's get up inside this. I'm freestyle rhyming. Rocking a great show. Tonight is my assignment. What is going on in the background? Oh, I know what's happening. I can hear the video of my own stream a few seconds later, but you guys can't. Let me just mute that. Oh, that's so much better. Can you believe I just did that with a fantasy echo in my brain the whole time? All right, my live stream. Yeah, I got the note. I got the note. Okay, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Consciousness Tonight. I have some great content for you guys this evening. I'm so happy to be back. I spent the entire day. Hello from Seattle to Michael Trug. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Okay, so I did a great interview today with Gary. Oh, you got, yeah. All right, we're gonna play a little bit of my Rap Guide to Consciousness show, which was off Broadway live, performed last year up until last November, and it's exploring the science of consciousness in rap and theater form. So one of the things that was a nice synchronicity when I was first creating my Rap Guide to Consciousness show is that my wife Heather, who's a neuroscientist, she was pregnant with our son Dylan, and I was working on the show, and then he was born, and I got to interact with him as a sort of emerging developmental consciousness while reading about each of the theories and sort of watching as he came online with various capacities and thinking about, you know, what would be the instantiation in his newborn brain that would cause this to now happen. This is like the first smile and the first vocalizations and everything. So I wrote a whole scene in the show about that. And I'm going to share it with you right now. This is a live performance from last fall of the Rap Guide to Consciousness on stage when we actually had audiences that we could chill with. And if you guys want to put more comments in the chat and do a little freestyle riff afterwards, again, let's do that. But I'm going to play this video, and that means I'm sharing my screen, and it's going to be desktop 1. And we're going to go to, not that video, this video. Okay, here we go. This is me live for like 100 people in a off-Broadway style theater with neurons on set. And we're talking about levels of consciousness and where does it emerge in evolutionary or, physics history, and where does it emerge in a baby as the baby develops. Oh, hold up. I don't think I shared my sound. You got to hear it too. All right, here we go. Picture consciousness as more similar to a dimmer switch, right? A gradient from very little glimmers of consciousness gradually increasing until you reach, well, let's say more than very little glimmers of consciousness. I'm not arguing for the exact position of every organism on this graph, and I'm not even necessarily arguing for the representation of each species by the selected organism. That is a different discussion. The point is, you already think of a gradient. It's natural to think of a gradient. If you didn't believe in a gradient of consciousness, you would feel just as guilty every time you squish a mosquito as you feel every time you squish a Cocker Spaniel. Sometimes that gets a little, aww, not from y'all. When I do get that sound, I say, that's the sound of empathy. The sound you made was the sound of sociopathy. Especially that nefarious laughter moment. Okay, so in our species, empathy seems to favor organisms that we're closely related to. Does this dog just look sadder than it did 5 seconds ago? I don't know. But we don't really empathize as easily with organisms that we're sort of still related to, but further back in the family tree. So why is that, right? It's a form of discrimination. Amoeba bigotry. No, there's a logic behind it. See, we intuitively feel like there's more consciousness in our branches of the tree. That's why moral consideration is warranted. Suffering over here, no suffering over here. Therefore, you don't have to feel bad when you take the antibiotics and cause the streptococcal genocide. Because they don't feel it. Okay, fine. What do you do then when you get to cephalopods, right? The mighty octopus. It is an invertebrate, so it's no more closely related to us than a barnacle or an oyster is. But they're so smart. They remember faces, right? They escape from their cages. They solve puzzles. In Europe, they have special protections under the law. Yeah, they've been designated under EU regulations as honorary vertebrates. And you go to France, it's legal to boil lobsters and illegal to boil octopuses if they're still alive. Here in America, you are allowed to boil octopuses for fun if such is your hobby. It's explicitly protected in the First Amendment. Or implicitly, that's for the Supreme Court to decide, but remember the concept at least. The honorary vertebrate, like Bob Corker and Jeff Flake. Demographically experimental comedy reveals the map and the reactions in real time. All right, so picture where you think consciousness roughly started in the evolution of life. Closer to here, or closer to here. And now I'm going to mess with your intuitions by describing the most manipulative and deceptive organism in nature. A human baby. The feeling when you're chilling like a villain, dealing with no stress, like a room with no ceiling, just open. And you like the rhyme illin' so much you name your first son Dylan. That's the feeling I had November 12th when I first held Dylan and fell under his spell. It was 3 days after the election from hell when the Trump cartel captured Winterfell. Remember that feeling? Just ill and disgusted with political drivel on Twitter from Trumpkins telling us the civic discussion is critically busted. You know that feeling? Well, Dylan doesn't. What's it like to be a human baby? Just a blooming, buzzing confusion maybe? I look in his eyes and try to read his thoughts and find myself wondering whether he's got them or just sensations, chaotic and messy. I wanna relate, should I take some LSD so I can stop thinking and just exist? I mean, look at the kid, ignorance is bliss. You know the feeling when you find the right words to express your thoughts, connect and get heard. Y'all know that feeling?
Yo, I know the feeling.
Animals don't though, and neither does Dylan. You know the feeling of bladder control when you don't even go when you have to go. Y'all know that feeling?
Yo, I know the feeling.
Even dogs know that feeling, but not Dylan. Dylan doesn't know the feeling of regret or anticipation of future stress. Is he conscious? Yes, or maybe not just yet. There could be several different levels of consciousness. Does he have a subjective perspective? I guess so, but is it like a fish or like a gecko? The kid started out as a single cell about a year ago, but don't call it a miracle, call it a triumph of modern medicine. Dylan was an excellent IVF specimen. I know cause he spent a month in a freezer, so we can check his genes first and do research. Sometimes evolution needs a boost, and it worked too. Aw, he's so cute, but when does he begin to be a mental self? I've seen a picture of him at 100 cells, and I wondered, when does consciousness emerge? At the paramecium level or nematode worm? I was still a proud dad though, when the kid had a tail and gills like a tadpole. You know the feeling when you comprehend and solve a problem that was trying to box you in? You know that feeling?
Yo, I know the feeling.
Animals don't though, and neither does Dylan. You know the feeling when you wanna suck a boob so bad that nothing but a nipple's gonna do? Who knows the feeling?
Yo, I know the feeling.
Hetero men, lesbians, and Dylan. Baby mammals, they're so beguiling. Dylan's got skills, eating, smiling, babbling a little bit of call and response, communicating all of his needs and wants. But that doesn't mean he knows what he's doing, planning, considering, executing. Yeah, Dylan's got reasons to do stuff, but are they his reasons or evolutions? A cuckoo chick doesn't laugh or cry, it focuses on host chick and fanticide. And if Dylan was a Barbary macaque, he'd be clinging instinctively to mama's back. It's easy to anthropomorphize the mind of an animal, but evolution is blind and thinking is costly. A baby bird doesn't need it to get its mama to feed it, and Dylan doesn't need to reflect on his cuteness to recruit parental contributions. All he needs to do is goo goo and ooh child. Resistance is futile. You know the feeling when you make a whole plan in your mind, strategize and revise and adapt. Y'all know that feeling?
Yo, I know the feeling.
Animals don't though, and neither does Dylan. You know the feeling when you're lost in a memory, daydreaming off in a thoughtful reverie. Y'all know that feeling?
Yo, I know the feeling.
You and me see eye to eye, but not Dylan.
Rap hit.
Terrible bad habits to just start talking without unmuting myself. Hello, everyone. I'm back. Hope you enjoyed the view of my silent face talking to you. Yes, it was mentioned that is there a YouTube link for the Dylan video? And yes, there is. It's youtube.com/Baba Brinkman. The album is The Rap Guide to Consciousness. I was speaking for quite a long time there before I realized I was muted. But anyway, yeah, that The Rap Guide to Consciousness is 15 songs that take you through, most of the theories and the neuroscience as much as you can fit into rap songs anyway. Okay, so now I have an interview that I'd like to share with you that I did earlier today. Gary Lockman is an author and a musician. And I didn't know much about him until yesterday when Stuart suggested, why don't you interview him for Consciousness Tonight? So I started Googling, Wikipediaing, and had my mind blown. He was in Blondie with Debbie Harry and was part of the whole late 70s, early 80s New York music scene, right there at the sort of inception of hip hop, which was the culture that influenced me to get into rapping. So I got to interview Gary. He's published more than 20 books on Western esoteric traditions, the occult, his most recent one. We'll talk about it in the interview. So I'm going to share this interview I did earlier today with Gary, and you're going to see also at the end him holding up various book titles and me freestyle rapping whatever he suggests on the screen. So here we go. This is my interview with Gary Lockman from earlier. Lockman. Yeah. All right, I am here with Gary Lockman. He's joining us on Consciousness Tonight at the Tucson Science of Consciousness Conference. And as many of you probably know, Gary has published more than 20 books, has been a chronicler of the history of esoteric thought in the Western tradition and the influence of occult thinking on politics and history and all kinds of trends that are relevant to things that are happening in the news and in the world today, and has also been interested in consciousness for many decades, as well as being a pioneer in the music industry, having been a member of Blondie. And as a rap artist and sort of hip hop history geek, I was ecstatic to see that connection, because Blondie, of course, is part of the sort of archive of history for having produced the first record that went to #1 with a rap in it, although it was also the beginning of the how authentic is the engagement with hip hop question, because of course the first rap being in a song was by a white lady. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you about your history and about your experiences in the music industry, and as a starting point for this, because it's formative, right? If you're spending all your time interacting with that world and producing things that you don't know how they're going to do or how they're going to be received. Do you feel like your experience as a musician and as an artist inspired your interest in esoteric thought and then the nature of consciousness in any way?
Well, I got interested in the sort of stuff I've been writing about now for some time. Pretty much around the same time I started playing in Blondie. I told the story. Oh, here we go. I tell this story in this book, New York Rocker, My Life in the Blank Generation.
Nice.
1974, 1981. And the short story is that when I started playing in Blondie in the spring of 75, we moved into a loft space on the Bowery, Debbie, Harry, Christine, and I. And this is, if you're in New York these days, you go to the Bowery, it's all souped up, it's unrecognizable. But back then, it really was the Bowery. And in this space, Chris and Debbie had a kitschy kind of interest in the occult, and they had some upside-down pentagrams and voodoo dolls hanging around. And then, but this fellow who rented us our floor, he was this kind of flamboyant artist, and he was very much into Aleister Crowley. And he used to do these tarot readings, and he was painting these flamboyant canvases based on the Crowley tarot deck. And all this, I had no interest in the occult in that sense. I was very interested. I like horror films and horror fiction, H.P. Lovecraft and that kind of thing, but I didn't really take it seriously. But in that kind of atmosphere, there was a lot of debris left over from the previous generation, sort of Timothy Leary books and Castaneda and things like that. And I read this one book called The Occult by a British writer named Colin Wilson, about whom many years later I wrote this book called Beyond the Occult, The Life and Work of Colin Wilson. And Colin Wilson was, he's writing about consciousness back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and he died 2013. But he wrote this fantastic book just called The Occult, came out in 1970, and it was a remarkable history of the occult and magic and paranormal and so on and so on. But from a philosophical point of view, sort of existential or phenomenological point of view, I mean, that's a mouthful, but I later came to understand this, that he had a whole decade of writings on existentialism and phenomenology and things of that sort. But that book got me going. And so I plunged into this world, and it was a good time to do it because in the mid-70s, there was a boom in this kind of cheap occult publishing. There were a lot of public domain works from the last century that were coming out in cheap editions, and then there was just lots of books on everything were coming out. And I used to hang out in the old Weiser's bookshop in Cooper Union in sort of the East Village, and so it was around the same time. And just to cap it off, I wrote a couple songs for Bondi, but one that was a big hit was about all this sort of thing. It was called "I'm Always Touched by Your Presence, Dear." And it was about these telepathic dreams, these shared dreams I was having with my girlfriend at the time.
Well, I didn't mention at the beginning, but I'm actually recording from New York right now. I'm out in Long Island. Haven't been in the city for a few months at this point because all the reasons that you go there have all been shut down. But yeah, I mean, I was drawn to New York very much because of the music and arts as well. And I think a lot about this question of like what makes the I'm an artist, that's what I do, and but I'm not, I haven't had top 40 hits. I'm sort of a mid-level artist, but every time I create something, it's like what is the thing that makes this infiltrate all the brains, and the zeitgeist attaches to some things and not other things. And you've written a lot about sort of new thought and power of positive thinking, how the sort of contemporary self-help and business world is influenced by things that have deep roots in the Western esoteric tradition and the Gnostics. And, I'm curious about this myself and have thought about it since I first picked up a pen and tried to write a song. How much do you see, those forces, whether you want to call them metaphysical or psychological forces, sort of playing a role in the outcomes of the creative works that we do? Well, I mean, it's,
I think there's a gradient. I mean, I think just creative work itself taps into what in other manifestations or deeper levels of border on something like the paranormal, the mystical, and that kind of thing. So I think there's a sort of gradient from that. And this is, many people have written about this. It's Colin Wilson, that, and Arthur Kessler is another writer who nobody reads anymore. But
the Sleepwalkers.
Sleepwalkers, Ghost in the Machine, Act of Creation. He wrote a fantastic book about creativity. It's precisely this, called The Act of Creation. And he has this whole gradient, but there's the, what is it? It's the ha-ha, the aha, and the ah. And the ha-ha is a joke, and the aha is the scientific, recognition of something, and the ah is the aesthetic kind of release. And again, they're all sort of three different sort of what do you want to say, dimensions of, or levels of, or experiences of a similar kind of experience. And I think that's the same because, writing pop songs is one level of creativity, but if you're writing, great poetry or great symphonies or other things, the same kind of thing happens, is that you have to give way to something other than yourself, your immediate self, me, I, Gary, or Baba, the ego that you identify with, and there's something else that starts to, come out, and it's that tennis, volley between, the inspiration coming out, and then, you catching hold of it and trying to vocalize it. I know this sounds like a cliche, but it is kind of like the left and right brain kind of talking to each other in a way. The right brain gives the inspiration, the left catches it and tries to give it a form, and then the right brain thinks, oh, good, okay, and it sends some more up. And if you're lucky, I know when I used to write songs, they used to just come out, and I'd write them in 5 minutes pretty much. Anything that took longer than that just didn't sound any good. But now
every time, or when you were in the zone, or every time?
No. I mean, well, if I wasn't in the zone, I didn't write a song. I mean, anything I cobbled together was just always, second rate, and it just was there. It was filler. Yeah. And but the real songs just came out. But I mean, and then actually, but when I turned to writing prose. After many years of writing stuff that no one would ever possibly ever want to read, I had to learn how to do it. And it was a very, very different process. But the other writing just came out. It was boom. I mean, you must know that there it is already. I mean, a poem is, it is something, so.
I love, there's a story of how the rapper Tupac made his record, All Eyes on Me, and basically he came out of prison having been so frustrated by the lockdown. He recorded the whole record in 2 weeks, and he had a rule that no rapper that was guesting on the record could do more than one take of their verse, and if somebody messed up a word, then they were out, and then he would replace them with another rapper. And he wrote all of his verses like in minutes and just rapped them right away. I always held that up as my ideal, but in practice I sometimes get a commission to like write a song about quantum computing. Sure. And, I do have the romantic ideal of like a good song flows in 5 minutes, and then I'll just bang my head against the wall for like weeks going like, how do you explain quantum computing and rap? So there's this tension, right? Between, because you write books now, and you used to write songs.
I mean, it's the same thing. People, it's not songs that say, oh, would you like to write an article about this or about that? And I say, yeah. I always say yes. I mean, that's my policy. I always say yes and figure it out later, because you need the work. And then, then you do, but I can sort of do the work now and research and put it together. Whereas like, I have to say, because I was a musician at the right time in the right place. When I started, if you could almost play, that was the benefit. That was good. If you're really good, nobody, they didn't want you. So it was, I guess in one way later on down the line, rap and all that kind of stuff, in some way shared in that DIY aspect of, it wasn't, you had to go to the Juilliard School of Music in order to play rock and roll. And for me, the fact, how should I say, I think when you have that kind of innocence and freshness towards the instrument, just banging out a couple chords can suddenly, sound like something else. And if you're too good at it, it'll still, no, that's nothing. It has to be more complex. But it was, it's lyric poetry. It's like, it comes out. It's a song. The spirit moves you, And yeah, of course, you're a poet laureate, and okay, if someone commissions you to do that, then you put your head down and you bang it out, and you can do that. You can do it, but I know in my own experience, when I've done that, it's always like, well, let's get on to the next song. Let's get to the next song. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So earlier today, we're listening to talks that are about how the default mode network of the brain is an inhibitor of creativity and flow, and parts of mindful meditation are about deactivating the default mode network so that you can be in a state of sort of equanimous presence and effortless doing. And I associate with this a lot as an artist, but I wanted to ask you about how you think about consciousness in the brain. This conference is, there is a mix of people that see the brain as channeling consciousness, which precedes it and is not, disembodied in some sense, or not physicalist. And there's lots of other people that are saying everything we can talk about as subjectivity can be translated into the activity of these physical parts in our neural systems moving around. So, where do you fall in the spectrum of how subjectivity and consciousness happens and interacts with or is produced by the physical parts of our brain?
Right. Well, in quite a few of my books, I draw on the philosopher Henri Bergson's theory that the brain serves an eliminative function, that its job was not to produce consciousness, but to filter down the amount of reality that reaches our consciousness, because there's a heck of a lot of it out there. As mystical experiences and psychedelic experiences and psychoid or psychotic experiences tell us, reality in many ways can be overwhelming. And so, as Bergson said, and other people like Nietzsche, who have just written recently about this as well, the intellect serves for the functions of life. Bergson said the brain is the organ of attention to life. And so it edits down the amount of reality out there so that we can maneuver through it. And we absolutely have to have that. That's evolutionarily adaptive, and we're, the dominant species for good or bad because we're very good at doing that. But it's led to, there's a loss because we lose the bigger picture. We lose the kind of larger global, fuzzy, vague, canvas, the intuitive glue, as I call it in this book called The Lost Knowledge of the Imagination, in which I do talk about Bergson and Ian McGilchrist's relatively recent book, The Master and His Emissary, about he reboots the whole left and right brain story. But I mean, at the same time, I guess it's sort of the receiver kind of view. If I'm watching television, there's a picture on there, but the picture isn't created by the tubes or whatever's in a TV these days, tubes. That's sent you back quite some time. So something along those lines.
Do you see a lot?
Sorry, go ahead.
Follow up. Do you see a lot of value in the project of going to the level of individual neurons or molecules interacting with the brain?
Yeah, I mean, the more the merrier. I mean, the more the merrier. I think we should look at all these kinds of things, but not to the exclusion of others. I mean, one question arises, and it just strikes me as a logical kind of problem, and maybe somebody's answered this, and I just haven't got the memo about this, but in this book, called The Secret History of Consciousness, which is sort of my big book on consciousness, came out in 2003. The opening chapter is explaining consciousness with a question mark. And it's Daniel Dennett and Nicholas Humphrey and John Searle and
all of whom have spoken at this conference in the past years.
Okay, I'm leaving them out. And Francis Crick. And I mean, the Francis Crick one is the one that I always think. And I started off with a quote from his book, The Astonishing Hypothesis, where he says, your hopes and dreams, your visions, and your values, and everything that's going on inside you that you recognize as you is really the result of whatever it is, neurons and moleculars or something, just along the lines of you saying. And that's fine, but did he include his own in that? Because if he did, then the very idea that he has that our hopes and dreams and everything going on inside our heads is only the product of the neurons and the molecules means that very idea itself is a product of the neurons and the molecules. And I have nothing against Francis Crick, Nobel Prize winner DNA, but why should his molecules be any better than my molecules or anybody else's? Because if they're responsible for what's going on inside our head, that includes his idea of that. So it just strikes me, it logically kind of pulls the rug out from under itself. It does that out of all the possible, results of molecules doing their thing. His happened to be the ones that hit on the exact right thing, and the rest of us who differ from him or our molecules are giving us the wrong answer. And again, maybe I'm not getting it, but there's a logical problem there in itself. And so I guess I'm more on the David Chalmers side, the Mysterians. There is a hard problem. There's the binding problem. Was it Wolf Singer talks about that? I mean, I might be, out of date because I haven't kept up too much with the current scientific thing. Again, I don't want to sound anti or non-science, but it shouldn't have a monopoly on consciousness because I have the most immediate and direct experience of consciousness. You might have more experience of my brain if I let you open my head up and look at my brain. I have no immediate experience in my brain, but I certainly have immediate experience in my consciousness. And this is where I find, the existential, the phenomenological kind of approach, where you can study and observe the actual thing and not try to explain it, but you're trying to kind of see it in action, as it were. And so I would think literature in many ways, novelists like Proust or Robert Musil, the Austrian novelist, and, so many others you could name, they tell us many things about consciousness itself, but they're not trying to explain it in terms of some preconception that, okay, it must in some way ultimately resolve into this kind of vision of things, be physicalist or materialist, because that's the ones that's most accepted now. I mean, I think in a way, yeah, carry on doing everything, but let us not have, let's not assume ahead of time where we're going to wind up at the end of the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're describing in a way motivates a lot of the people that have decided to make a scientific study of it, because the sort of rules of the game are bring something to the table that can be independently verified, and intersubjectivity doesn't really follow those rules, right? So is consciousness something that even in principle can be studied by science when we each have individual direct access to it and no one else ever will? Or is it the thing that science can never touch? And a lot of the talks at this conference is, start with that hard problem disclaimer and then say, okay, well, look at these fascinating correlations. We can't quite say cause yet, but it's really interesting to see the sort of gradient of, let's say, expectation that science is going to, open Pandora's box and show that everything, single subjectivity has, instantiation of the brain, or maybe there's some that don't. And there's a range of views on that in this conference, but I find it really fascinating.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just, you can say ultimately, even the hardest scientific approach is mediated by that scientist's consciousness, which is subjective itself. I mean, so you can't escape it. I mean, in one sense, it's like this, we can't get outside of it in some way in order to look at it objectively. Although within it, there's a variety of different criteria we can apply to it and approaches to try and understand it. So, I mean, I don't know the science. I can't do the science and that kind of thing. But it's more like, well, okay. I mean, I go back to Bergson. He said, it's kind of pointless to try and define consciousness because any definition would make it only more obscure.
Let me pivot to some of your recent work. I was really fascinated by some of the reviews I read of Dark Star Rising.
Oh, right. Okay.
I only had the interview queued up yesterday, so I have not had a chance to actually read the whole books.
Sure.
But people are totally perplexed by the appeal of Trump. People that see him as a fraud find it just incomprehensible that anybody could be taken in. And so, you see applications of the power of positive thinking, new thought, occult tradition being applied. I thought the stuff about Pepe the Frog was totally fascinating, and I, followed that on Twitter as well. And the idea of a totem getting out of control of the people that invented it. And so, how much do you think this is playing an unexamined role in what is otherwise seemingly unintelligible political phenomena right now?
All right. Well. This is Book 2, Dark Star Rising, Magic and Power in the Age of Trump. And it's not really a book about Trump per se, but he's the occasion for the book. And you're talking about New Thought and Pepe. Pepe is a long story. But fundamentally, I was asked to write the book, commissioned to write the book.
Which makes it harder to get into flow state, right?
it was kind of like hurry up and do it too, because it was like kind of the first current events book I was doing. It's like this is happening now. I mean, it came out 2 years ago, but I started writing it just after the election. And and big story is all this weird occult stuff that's on the fringe suddenly was bang front page news in more ways than one. And one of the things that kicked this off was, after Trump's election, Richard Spencer, who was the sort of the main ideologue of the alt-right then, and was the head of what was called the National Policy Institute, and they had their annual meeting at the Ronald Reagan building in Washington, and they started it, or Spencer started it by walking up to the podium amidst cheers, saying, "Hail our hero, hail our victory. We made this happen. We made this dream come true. We willed this." And he was basically saying that somehow he and his fellow travelers had somehow willed Trump to win. And a fellow named Harv Bishop, who's a New Thought blogger, because all this stuff was on the news. It was on the regular news if you watch CNN and all that. And then they had these Hitler salutes, and Spencer pointed out that actually they were Roman salutes. But they were all these things, and that was all in the newspapers and all that. But this guy Harv Bishop said it looks like Spencer is saying that they're using kind of New Thought, make your dreams come true. We create reality kind of thing. And so I looked into that, and then it turned out that Trump himself is a devotee of positive thinking. He was a long time attendant at the Marble Collegiate Church on Fifth Avenue, 29th Street, where Norman Vincent Peale was a reverend for many years, and he wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. And it's this kind of mental science, where there's this notion that we create reality, which, as you said earlier, actually has very prestigious antecedents in ancient philosophies, and Kant even, if not that ancient, and that kind of thing, Emerson, and good people, but it's
Trump's forebears.
Yeah, well, it turns up it's blame Kant, but any case, and if you know the one, there's a famous quote that actually Peale took from Carl Menninger, the psychiatrist, who said, "Facts don't matter; it's your attitude toward the facts." So attitudes are more important than facts. And we know facts, are something that Trump plays fast and loose with. And he's always upbeat. Everything it turns up it's blame Kant. It's the greatest. It's the most something other. And he piles the hyperboles on and so on and so on. And so a variety of other things going on. And one other thing was that somehow that these New Thought, Trump supporters who were posting weird stuff on the internet, on sites like 4chan and all that. Again, it's a long story, but they were using Pepe the Frog, an innocuous amphibian slacker, but he got turned into this magical talisman for this dark force, as somehow, well, if you know Carl Jung's notion of synchronicity, when there's a meaningful coincidence between something going on inside your head and something taking place in the outside world, and there's no causal connection, but there's a meaningful connection that's so kind of obvious and immediate that it kind of makes you, even against your will, say, what the, kind of thing. So what they were doing was transplanting that sort of phenomena onto the internet. So there were stuff happening on the internet. The idea was if the internet was saturated enough with images of this Pepe the Frog as Trump or one of the deplorables and hanging out with Trump and looking over the wall into Mexico, this would somehow affect the real world. And they called this synchromysticism and all that. But as I looked into this, this stuff is happening in Russia as well. Putin has this, had for a while, I don't know so much these days now, but this strange fellow named Alexander Dugin, who's very much into the similar kind of magic. It's a branch of chaos magic. But he was also a reader of Julius Evola, who was this 20th century Italian esoteric thinker who had far-right leanings. He tried to ingratiate himself with Mussolini and National Socialism. And after the war, he was sort of the imminence Greece behind various new right movements in Italy and so on. But he combined kind of ideas about mental magic because he tried to influence Mussolini through spells and sort of magical rites and rituals. He was trying to imbue Mussolini's fascists with the ancient Roman virtues. I don't know how successful he was with that. But similarly, the idea with Spencer and his gang and other fellow travelers were doing similar kinds of things through the internet in order to help Trump get into power. And wow, lo and behold, he's president. He's also a billionaire. So
he says.
Well, he was at one point at least.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it is fascinating to see on the news this constant narrative of, the facts will catch up with him eventually. You hear this, they're constantly saying that. He can't just keep lying. People will eventually, realize how contrary everything he's saying is to, the infection rates of COVID or whatever it is. But his base doesn't change, So I feel like maybe they're missing something when they say that.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is the facts don't matter. As long as the spell lasts, that's the thing. Again, one of the things I point out in the book about Dark Star Rising, and then again, there's a kind of gradient between the magician, the guru, and the demagogue, because they do similar things to larger numbers of people. The magician casts some kind of spell on you or a couple people around you, and Darren Brown, he does something, and wow, how did he manage to do that? And he fools you and a couple people. Then the guru has a larger, crew of people, and people who follow the guru often become very dependent and just accept anything, and there's a whole reality that they take on board. And then the demagogue does something similar to large numbers of people, entire nations. The cliched examples are someone like Hitler, and others and things like that. And in some way, I mean, again, it's a gradient and it's not a hard argument, but I would say Trump shares in some of the kind of psychological traits and characteristics of, well, he's obviously a demagogue, but in similar, I mean, a guru too, because he's written these self-help books, or at least these how to be a success, how to be like me, you know, I'm a success, and here's how you can be a success too, and Art of the Deal is like that kind of thing too. And there's another psychological kind of trait that I think he exemplifies, and it's this notion that this writer Colin Wilson I mentioned earlier, that he talks about in his books. It's called the right man. And it's a kind of character who under no circumstances will ever admit that he's wrong. And if he's ever confronted, you know, with unmistakable, irrevocable kind of proof of this, he would, you know, burst out into some kind of violence and that sort of thing. And again, I'm not making any predictions, but taking that on board and looking at the situation in the United States today and looking at the election coming up, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be there, put it that way.
Well, let me ask you one more question then. Action oriented. You know, for those of us who are sort of dispositionally skeptical of gurus and demagogues, and you know, feel like the spell needs to be broken ASAP. You know, I think my instinct and the instinct of lots of journalists and sort of science-minded people is, you know, just keep bringing the facts to the table and eventually they'll work. But do you feel like there's more of a fight fire with fire necessity here? Like, how do we counter this?
No, Trump is just feeling an emotional need. He's not selling rational politics. He's not about getting the trains to run. But
how do you break the spell? Do you come with intentionality towards, like, in the other direction even stronger, or how do you break through?
I mean, if you're asking that question, you are the resistance already. So you have broken through. But you mean on a broader kind of scale? I mean, how do you break through to his core followers? No, I think he has to fail. I mean, but really fail in some way. And that's why I don't want to have too gloomy an outlook. But I think Trump will want to go out with a bang. He always wants to do something no one's done before. It's the biggest, the most, and what's left? He's president of the United States. You know, so again, this is just me.
A second term.
Well, the second. I'm assuming he'll win, but I'm assuming he will win, or it will be somehow made so that
find a way to win.
He will win, and then there'll be. Again, I don't want to say the CW words, but I'm afraid that, you know, something will happen in November because of that. Because if he doesn't win, his supporters won't accept it, and if he does, his opponents won't accept it either. And everyone knows this, you know. So let's hope an already horribly turbulent and painful year doesn't go out with any more of a bang. But you remember, he dropped the mother of all bombs. I mean, if he didn't drop a nuke when he dropped, that was the closest thing to a nuclear weapon he had on hand. I forget the name of the actual armament that he dropped, you know, soon into his presidency, but he dropped the mother of all bombs.
Yeah.
You know.
In Syria, or yeah. Okay, so thank you for this conversation. Absolutely fascinating. I hope everyone in the conference really enjoyed it. And you know, since I'm both an interviewer and a rapper, we have prepared this little game. So I have asked Gary to prepare some of his sort of intellectual forebears, books and movies, and I don't know what he's going to show me, but I'm going to do.
We can. I'll just.
I'm going to.
What do we got? How many minutes?
You know, 2 to 3 minutes. If you give me something every 10 seconds or so, I'll riff on it. And feel free to, like, surprise me and keep it as random as you like. Hold on first. I'm going to pin your video so I don't see myself, because otherwise it's going to try to just always show me. And there we go. And I am going to play the beat. Don't show me the first book until the beat comes in, and we'll just, you know, feel free to play with it. All right, here we go. Oh, I lost my track. I'm going to cue my track up here again. Actually, this is the beat from the song about quantum computing that I'll be playing here. So here we go.
All
right. Yeah.
Well, here's a book that changed my life.
Oh, check it out. freestyle cipher. We're gonna start it off with The Outsider. I get up in the rap groove.
Here's
Wait, was that
another
by
book
Camus? I'm not
very
sure I got
proud
the
to
good
write
stuff.
about.
It's Gurdef with the GI. I've been all reading, proceeding. Yes, I'm just giving them what they're needing. I'm rocking with Gary Lockton,
There I was
the New
back in
York
the day.
rocker. I'ma have to spit it. This is not an offer, a proffer. Yeah, I'm coming on deep. That's Blondie. Check it.
Let's hope the light
It's Dark
comes
Star
on.
Rising. I'm freestyling. I bring my eyes in, keep them kind of open. I'm using the occult. Cause
my
if Trump
first
wins
book
again,
about
it's
the
America's fault.
1960s.
Yeah, turn off your mind, switch it off, be mindful. I'm coming so rhymeful. Cause it's not time to go, it's time to
Make
take it.
room
I
for
got words and
Hermes.
beats. This is the Trimegistus of Hermes. See, I'm taking it back to the ancient Greeks. When I speak, it's unique. Listen to my brain
here's
peak. I mean, I got stuff. I am going to
latest.
Holy Russia. The Rasputin of the modern world could touch ya. Yeah, indeed. Check it out. I'ma have to appear on a Zoom rap right now. People are like, that was weird. But there's an occult thing in Vladimir. Okay, I'm just trying to create atmosphere.
That was weird.
Thank you so much for being a great sport, Gary.
Yeah, no, that was fine. That was great, man. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, you know, I like taking rap in unusual intellectual directions. So this has been a great conversation. For that
Okay,
as
well, my pleasure. Thank you. And I hope the attendees enjoy it.
All right.
All right, take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You too. Cheers. Take
Okay, we're back. We're back live. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was super random and interesting for me to meet such a person with such a history and set of interests just with no notice. So I had a great time there. Now we are nearing the end of Consciousness tonight. We're supposed to finish up at midnight here, 9 o'clock there, but I have a brand new song. Yet again, I listened to all of the talks today and put together this rap that I'm about to drop for you guys right now with a lot of harmonic resonance references in it. So hope you guys enjoy. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Just hit record on here so we can play this in the background. Yeah, you got it. Can you guys hear that beat? Is that coming through? All right. So this is the harmonic resonance rap from day 3. All right. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Day 3, I'm feeling that resonance ultrasound. Ego lost and found, psychedelically drowned, and resurrected in a house of pain. So jump around like signals on an encephalographic crown. Ooh, I'm vibrating and resonating in my consciousness now. I'm feeling so high I don't want to come down. Signals bounce across my cortex, harmonically pulse and pound, and then seesaw together when I come to ground. And when I'm down, ooh, that's when I need uplifting quickly. I like to get a life up hit from Alexander Biscuit. Try that again. When I'm down, I get uplifted quickly. I gotta get a life up hit from Alexander Bistritsky. Focused ultrasound straight to the dome. Low intensity, I mean the wavelengths though, not the way I feel subjectively. That's how I groove with the track when I'm producing these raps. I'm coupling interface style with a transducer attached like a rabbit in headlights, or like epileptic rats. I get my FDA Innovation Award for hyperactive acts. Scientifically, I explicitly need an accredited exorcist, like the Emperor of Emperor Claudius treating migraines with an electric fish. Scientifically, I explicitly need an accredited exorcist, like the doctor of Emperor Claudius treating migraines with electric fish in ancient Rome, baby. Yeah, 2,000 years ago, Scarabonius Largus hit me with the shock to get lyrical and see deep into the harmonic properties of nature, like a cymatic noise in a selenatosoid paper. No other species can match me peacocking on a jam, not even a puffer fish scratching a sexy pattern in the sand. Hell hell no. Those are primate phonics, complex, too hard for robotics, produced in my frequency boosted connectome harmonics. I got it if you want it. Can't you even hear the lyrics? It means I'm hooked on phonics, and when I speak on mics, you see precisely what my technique is like. Run a violin bow across it, the pattern is zebra stripes. No coincidence, that's the difference psilocybin makes. The probability distribution of my frequency moving to higher states via cyberspace. Psychedelics are telescopes exposing my psyche, my molecular probes. According to Dennis the Menace McKenna and his kinfolk, the psychedelic revolution is complete now that it's in vogue. Research institutes popping up like mushroom explosions. Each of us has a right to achieve mycological symbiosis. Now that psychedelics are sprouting away out of the valley, I do not take drugs, I am drugs. Salvador Dali, it's the disintegrator of selfhood. As the reconnector, it's not the same as classical psychosis either. Ask Edie Frexa. The doses are calibrated for maximum dilation, a recognition of the rest of life, a boundary violation, a meta-identification with wider ranges of agents, a remedy for past colonialism, post-Columbian exchanges, smallpox blankets in exchange for feeding civilization, domestication, corn, potatoes, dozens of staples, lost wisdom of the ancients. You are one with the caterpillar, the armadillo, and the lily pad. Ask Luis Eduardo Silva. Psychedelics allow us to reconnect with animism properly and adopt an interpersonal, intersubjective methodology, and not just philosophically. That can't be where it all stops. We are evolving into epistemological polyglots. Just ask Sue Blackmore in her talk. She said it, you're not going insane. I mean, come on, it's an epistemological exchange. See, it's something that you have. It's an emanation of your poison brain. Even if DMT hits the liver, nothing but demons in orange and vivid green colors, nothing but rat tails and penises. Even if you mutter terrible, 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 when it's frightening and conclude at the end, well, that was not very enlightening. Go back again, master your high, baby. Vaporize, shrink yourself down to a completely unfazable size and realize. And the name of Sue's talk was a bunch of stories about sometimes I did drugs. Come on, if you're gonna do autoethnography, accomplish it properly. It's not like mindfulness acquisition is gonna fall to sonography. Or maybe it will, and I need to be patient and ready for a neuromodulation hit from Jay Sanguinetti. I'm like, hit me, Jay. I just want to groove with this music. He's like, we're gonna remove activation. We're gonna reduce it. But he went too far. I probably should have made him warm up, but now I've got a motivation distorter. Freaking ethymormia, dysfunctional equanimity, that's tough to unlearn. Sitting in pain, but I can't suffer. Blistering severe sunburn. I'm like, come on, Jay, didn't you test this on Shinzen Young first? Equanimity's great, but motivation has to come first. He must have hit me with 2 simultaneous ultralight beams. Haven't you seen Ghostbusters, man? Don't cross the streams. Now I'm all kind of disharmonious. I'm disharmonious like the vibration of a panel vibe with extreme time I'm disharmonious like the vibration panel vibe with extreme time moderation by Anirban Bajopadhyay. He was like, sorry, Jonathan Schooler, finish up your talk. You got 40 slides left? Well, speed them up, walk the walk. I mean, you said shifting between nested windows is effortless, so make that slow pace fast, baby. Finding harmonic resonance. And Jonathan Schooler picked it up. Damn, that was like mad emergent info. Beginning to nest in his rapid description of observer windows. I felt the cross-frequency coupling for real, and when it was over, nested windows were nested behind birds nested on his shoulder. Even Anubon felt the power, so frenetic he had to shower, but instead he was like, oh look, our session just got extended by half an hour. Woo, hopefully Jonathan has a sense of humor. So was he joking or serious when he said consciousness studies foster openness to experience, which is necessary for creativity and intellectual humility and daydreaming and risk-taking and metacognitive ability. So just let me say with humility that I am totally open and free, and anyone less open just needs to try to be more like me. I'm free, feeling the vibe. I can abide like the Big Lebowski and improvise with Charlie Parker Band and Lawrence Bukowski, even over an upbeat death metal rock and real polka beat. Distributed mecha, even tongue twister. Even over an upbeat death metal rock and roll polka beat, distributed metacognition with material anchors riffing vocally. Shared consciousness is real, baby. I'm feeling it, damn son. I got that general resonance up in my cells. Word up to Tam Hunt. When I jam with the band, kicking lyrics in twisted English, we form a higher consciousness, and none of us gets individually extinguished. So I'ma step up and bust words, bring the ketchup and mustard. I mean, come on, me and the beat continuously get putatively coupled, clustered with maximum synchrony. Give Tam Hunt the megaphone, and he can phase lock onto any assemblage in my resonome, from breath to heartbeat to neural tree trunks. I mean, come on, the neural circuits are forming actively. A connectome is a tree trunk, and the resonome is what? The canopy? Is it me? Just ruffling leaves, frequency bands, and synchronies. And once my brain is dead meat, then Baba Brinkman leaves. I don't know for sure, but to be safe, I'd better say probably. And so for now, I'm just happy to resonate with everyone watching on day 3. I hope you're feeling that resonance ultrasound. Ego lost and found, baby, psychedelically drowned and resurrected in a house of pain. So let's all jump around like signals on an electroencephalographic crown. Let's all intersubjectively vibrate consciousness now and let the signals bounce together until we all come down from my cortex to yours, harmonically pulse and pound, and then cease all together when we go into the ground. From my cortex to yours, we harmonically pulse and pound, and then we all cease together when we go into the ground. Wow. Wow. That one was a mouthful. Oh, man. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. It's been really great to be here. It's so cool to see all the comments that I was not watching when I was doing the interview. But yeah, this is a huge honor for me to be here, participating in this conference, doing interviews, doing raps every night. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back tomorrow night for day 3 of the conference. Wait, where's today? Day 3? No, day 4 of the conference. There's a mad resonance time loop going on around here. It is out of time. Thanks, Stuart, for organizing this and for giving me the opportunity to interact with the people at Consciousness Tonight. And thank you all, and have a great night. And I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.